I am a young 20 years old, but I have decided that I'm barely experienced in retro gaming. The only games I've played a decent amount of or beaten are Donkey Kong Country with my dad, and TMNT Turtles in Time, which I've also played with my dad on the good old Super Nintendo. However, there was another game around that time that still sticks with me. A game I remember my brothers dumping many hours into, and maybe even a few myself. Which fabled game do I speak of? Metal Slug. Now that I've got more free time on my hands and am pretty curious about the games that came before my time, the ones the older generation experienced, I've decided to play some of these older games and share my thoughts on them, hence Retro Review. I'll be rating the game out of 10 at the end of the video, and the parameters for said rating will be detailed further in. For now, let's start with my initial impressions and opinions. Let me come out of the gate and say that this game is short. I understand it's an arcade game, but wow. My full footage from start to end was barely 40 minutes, and I died a lot, so I'm sure better players could breeze through it. The same goes for the 2-player option, which would probably be lots of fun, and what I remember actually playing the most in my childhood. Still, playing the game on single player was my choice. I wanted an unbiased view on that version of the game. So, what are my views? Well, I'd say I had a good time. The game opens by dropping you right into a military battlefield where you play as this sweet blonde guy with a pistol and start blasting the enemy soldiers. As you progress through the first level, you'll find new weapons, fight different enemies, and hopefully rescue some prisoners of war, who are these guys in binds who need freeing. Upon doing so, they'll thank you, hold their pants up, and give you a little gift. These gifts are usually heavy weaponry. As you can see here, my friend dropped me a heavy machine gun, which I proceed to shoot at maximum fire rate and gun down the hordes of toy soldiers assembled before me. I think that about sums up the core of Metal Slug, so let's get into the review. Starting the game up, I, of course, proceeded to the video options first, as every true gamer should. I bumped everything up to look as good as possible, including disabling this video filter option, which literally just blurs your game. Seems familiar. And after messing with scan lines, which I later found out was another option that simply made your game look worse, it went entirely black for some reason. I had to restart. Now that we've finally made it to the game, we're going to be going with arcade mode, which is basically the game's main story, content, and we're doing it on medium. The controls were a bit clunky to me at first, which is something I tinkered with for a while before deciding to just plug in my PS5 controller and play it that way, which is miles better. Still, I started my Metal Slug journey off properly by blasting my way through the first enemies and freeing some prisoners. Let's start by talking about some of these weapons. In Metal Slug, when you spawn, you're granted your trusty pistol, which is the weakest weapon in the game and only fires single shots, but it's got infinite ammo. You're armed with a knife, which you deploy when in close quarters and it absolutely shreds. The last part of your core armory are bombs. You're given 10 of them, which seemed a bit much to me at first, but the bosses just absolutely soak them up. They serve as explosive grenades and can torch enemies. Here you can see me grab the first weapon upgrade and the most common one in the game, the heavy machine gun, which fires in bursts and does more damage than the pistol, but it has a limited amount of shots. A core part of Metal Slug that I remember from growing up is the directional shooting. You'll have enemies coming in from above in choppers or from below, and you can point your gun up or down to fire at them. It still serves as a good mechanic, albeit a bit clunkier now than I remember, considering there's only 4 directions instead of 8. Like, if I were to press top and left at the same time, I could shoot at an angle. This would have served many, many times, but I digress. I suppose it adds to the game's difficulty. As is typical with older arcadey style games, you've got a big score counter in the corner of the screen, and the prisoners of war will often drop goodies to bump up that score as well. And this is generally how the game goes. You'll charge through the level and encounter enemy strongholds, environmental hazards, which can be used to your advantage. That is, until you reach the tank. Then the game sort of transforms a bit. You become a roving machine that just tramples through everything. Thankfully, the tank feels great and is very powerful, dishing out crazy damage and capable of taking 3 shots as opposed to your fleshy self, which dies in 1. It also features more of the spherical directional aiming I was talking about, with the back turret being able to rotate a full 360 degrees. Very smooth shooting here. I continued on this pattern of collecting weapons and destroying baddies until I reached each new level. I'd say I started to enjoy it more and more as time went on, with the new levels becoming more complex and featuring more things to interact with, like dodging Tesla beams, new environments to traverse, and of course, new bosses to end each level. This one in particular was pretty awesome in level 5. You square off against this moving chopper with a gunner hanging out of the side. I think he's the main villain or something, but who cares, I blasted him like the rest. Look at the blood spurts when I stab. That's more detailed in some games nowadays. Alright, let's see what's next. Oh, okay. The game's done. That's how I felt while playing. I had no idea there were only 5 missions. Well, I beat it, with only 75 deaths too. Anyways, there's a few more things I wanted to touch on. Firstly, the weapons. As mentioned previously, there's the starter pistol, the heavy machine gun, the shotgun, my personal favorite, the rocket launcher, and the flame shot, which is my close second. The heavy machine gun acts as a standard assault rifle, and the shotgun acts pretty normal as far as shotguns go, but the lethality of this one is just brutal. Prepare to turn your foes into red mist. As for the rocket launcher, honestly, it sucks. The damage is pretty low compared to the others, so while it's a great weapon, the usefulness is lacking. With the flame shot though, you'll be one-shotting enemies again from more of a distance than the shotgun, so it's definitely not bad, but probably on par, or even a bit worse than the heavy machine gun, since that's also one shot. Everything one-shots everything in this game, even you. And speaking of that, I died so much. Like I said, 75. There were times where I got a bit frustrated, especially with the bosses. They soak up so many bullets and are constantly throwing out attacks. Keep in mind, if any attack even grazes you, you're dead. You've got 3 lives before you need to continue, and when you respawn from that, the game throws you a bone in the form of a free heavy machine gun. Nice. Graphically, the game looks great. I love the pixel art, and there's times when your whole screen is full of bullets and explosions. Enemies have tons of blood spill out of them, and those effects look great. Everything is immersive and pleasing to look at, especially the different environments and intricate bosses. Props to the artists. And speaking of, the original artist for the game goes by Akio, and he posted this picture to X featuring the game's original art. Back then, the game was actually meant to be entirely played from the tank, I believe. Interesting how things changed, and good change if I might add. I think the on-foot gameplay is what makes Metal Slug so good, but maybe that's just because it's what we got. There's a wide variety of enemies to fight in the game, ranging from ground soldiers to jumping guys to water soldiers that will jump out and throw missiles at you. There's shield guys, the bane of all of our existences, land guys that will jump out and chop you up with knives, and tanks, of course. Tank-on-tank combat was good fun, while a lot of the smaller grunts began to blend together by the end of the game. The standout ones were those damn shield enemies. Tough to beat, for sure. You can get close for the kill, but you'll have to be quicker on the draw than they are with their swords. I also had an incident with the jumping fellas. You can see that here. Yikes. Now, how will I rate the game? Well, I'm not necessarily judging it purely on how well it holds up today, but that is a factor. I want to appreciate the game as it is and be conscious of when it came out. For Metal Slug, that was early 1996. Here are my main parameters. 1, how much fun I had. 2, how the game feels to play. 3, story. 4, general design, enemies, weapons, gameplay, etc. 5, art/graphics and sound. And finally, 6, replayability. Like I said, I enjoyed my time with Metal Slug, despite how brief it was. I think I actually liked it better that way. I don't know how many more deaths and bosses I could have taken. It felt pretty nice after I got a hang of the controls, but still a bit clunky at times. You might feel like you can't really aim where you want to often. There's pretty much no story here, at least not verbally. You're a good soldier fighting bad ones, and you take down the one in charge at the end. Simple. The enemy variety was great. The weapons were varied and fun to use, and the gameplay was enjoyable. As I said, the pixel art is beautiful, and everything is designed nicely. The sound might be one of my favorite parts, with memorable 8-bit jingles all throughout, and military tones to some of the tunes. Enemies will also scream horribly when set on fire. The guns sound good too. As for replayability, I could see myself flying through this game again in the future. At nearly 38 minutes, it's not a huge commitment. That's like watching an episode of a TV show, or not even. For now, though, I need a break. At least from this game, that is. For the record, I played this game on Steam, and it ran pretty well and looked pretty good. There were a few little lag spikes when things got really crazy on the screen, but other than that, not bad at all. This has been Retro Review. I hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for more to come.